So what happens when one person's final resting place is another's sacred space? You know, as we reach for the stars, the sky is literally no longer the limit. And that forces us to ask a really tough new question. Who gets to make the rules for the moon?
All right, so to really get this, we have to go back to 1999, when NASA's Lunar Prospector mission came to a pretty dramatic end. See, after it was done mapping the lunar surface, the probe was deliberately crashed into a crater right near the moon's south pole. But here's the thing, this wasn't just, getting rid of a piece of old machinery. Because on board that probe was a tiny capsule carrying the ashes of Eugene Shoemaker, a truly legendary planetary scientist who always dreamed of being an astronaut. It was the first, and so far, the only human burial on another world. But what looked like a really fitting tribute back then, well, it actually lit the fuse on a controversy that is flaring up all over again today.
Yeah, for the Navajo Nation and a number of other indigenous peoples, this wasn't a tribute. It was seen as a desecration. So in response to their objections, NASA's Director of Public Affairs actually issued an apology and made a big commitment. If they ever even thought about doing something like this again, they would consult with Native American communities first. And that promise? It's really being put to the test right now.
And here's why. Today, it's not just NASA going to the moon anymore. We're in a whole new era of private, commercial spaceflight. We've got companies offering to send memorial payloads right to the lunar surface. And that just brings up this massive question. As the moon gets more and more crowded, who actually gets to write the rulebook?
Okay, so let's really get into this. We have officially entered what a lot of experts are calling the second lunar era. And what that means is, we're not just visiting the moon for a weekend anymore. We're planning to stay.
You see, big programs like NASA's Artemis and the European Space Agency's Moonlight mission, they represent a huge shift in thinking. The goal isn't just about planting flags and taking pictures anymore. It's about creating a sustained presence up there for both humans and our robotic friends. But as you can imagine, this whole new level of activity comes with a whole new set of problems.
And we're not just talking about, philosophical debates here. We're talking about very real, very practical, and sometimes, frankly, grim challenges that come with this new age of exploration. Okay, for starters, space junk. I mean, as more and more missions head for the moon, managing all the debris in that space between Earth and the moon becomes absolutely critical. Scientists are especially worried about these really complex orbital paths. They're called elliptical lunar frozen orbits, or ELFOs, and that's where debris can just pile up. We're running a real risk of turning the lunar sky into a cosmic junkyard before we've even set up a permanent base.
And believe it or not, the challenges get even more serious than that. What you're looking at here is from an actual NASA directive. It's official policy for what to do when a crew member dies during a mission. It's a really sobering reminder that as we push farther and farther out, we have to deal with the grim logistics of human mortality, so far from home.
And all of this, it really gets to the core of the conflict, which, when you boil it down, isn't really about technology. It's about belief. It's a total clash of worldviews over what the moon even is.
Really, this whole debate boils down to two completely competing ways of seeing things. On one side, you've got what we can call the frontier view. The moon is a stepping stone for exploration, a place for industry, a source of valuable resources. But then, on the other side, you have the sacred view. The moon as an ancestor, a revered part of creation, with its own life force. And for many indigenous cultures, like the Maori of New Zealand, this isn't just, some poetic idea. They have this concept called Maori, which describes the essential life force that connects and sustains everything in nature. So from that perspective, the moon isn't just some dead rock floating in space. It's a living part of this vast, interconnected ecosystem, one that we belong to and have a responsibility to protect. Okay, so this might all sound a bit abstract, but a very recent mission brought this debate into sharp, and I mean very real focus.
So in January of 2024, a private company called Astrobotic launched its Peregrine lunar lander. Now this was a commercial mission, right? It was carrying a bunch of different payloads for multiple clients, including NASA. But two of those clients were memorial companies, Celestis and elysiumspace. And their payloads, well, they contained these small capsules of cremated human remains intended to stay on the moon forever.
And boom. This immediately reignited the exact same controversy from back in 1999. Peregrine, the president of the Navajo Nation, he put out this really powerful statement calling the whole thing a profound desecration.
He argued that the moon is sacred in Navajo cosmology, and turning it into a cemetery for human remains is just completely unacceptable.
But then you have the CEO of Celestis, Charles Chafffer, who saw it in a totally different light. He argued that their lunar memorial is handled with care and reverence, just like any memorial you'd find here on Earth. And this is the absolute heart of the conflict, right? You have two sides, both claiming they're being respectful, but they have fundamentally different definitions of what respect even means in this context.
So, with such a deep disagreement, you have to ask, who gets to make the final call? Who has the authority here? Well, the answer, or lack of one, lies in the pretty complicated and murky gray areas of international law.
A really key concept you need to know about here is the common heritage of mankind. Now, this is a legal principle that came about in the 1960s, and it basically argues that some places, like the deep seabed or Antarctica or outer space, they don't belong to any one country. Instead, they should be managed by the international community for the benefit of everyone, with an obligation to share whatever benefits come from using them.
Okay, so let's look at the two big treaties that govern this stuff. First, you've got the 1967 Outer Space Treaty. This is really the bedrock of all space law. It's widely accepted, and it says very clearly that no nation can claim sovereignty over the moon. Simple enough. But it's totally silent on sharing resources. Then you have the 1979 Moon Agreement, which went a big step further. It explicitly called the moon the common heritage of mankind and said we need an international system to manage its resources and share the benefits. And that's where the trouble really started.
So how many countries do you think actually ratified that moon agreement? Just 18. And crucially, none of the big spacefaring nations. We're talking the US, Russia, China, none of them have signed on. Why? Well, they were worried that this whole benefit sharing requirement would just kill any incentive for private investment. So legally, we're kind of in this awkward gray zone.
All of this leaves us standing at a major crossroads. As we kick off this second lunar era, we're not just building landers and habitats up there, we're building a legacy. We are literally defining our relationship with another world for all of time.
So, what is the moon to us, really? Is it a pristine scientific laboratory? Is it the next big frontier for commercial industry and mining? Is it a sacred ancestor, like some cultures believe? Is it a final resting place for our loved ones? Or is it the common heritage of all humanity, something to be managed by all of us for all of us? The tricky part is that right now it's trying to be all of those things at the same time. In the end, the Peregrine lander actually malfunctioned and never made it to the moon, but the questions it raised, they have not gone away. As we push further and further out into space, we have to decide what values we're taking with us. Is the moon a graveyard, a gas station, or a god? The answer we choose is going to define our future, not just on the moon, but right back here on Earth, too.